Hello, I'd like to say hi to all my viewers today and thank you for tuning in. And I hope and pray that you will subscribe to these viewings for Project Change. My name is Brian Lewis, and we want to talk a little bit more today about injustice in America. When you think back in the time of when President Barack Obama became president in 2008, we began to think that this would be something that would never happen, probably in most of our lifetime. And we began to think that there would be a shifting and a changing of the guard in America for black people because Barack Obama would have become our first black president. Barack Obama became president after first serving in the Senate. He was the Illinois senator, and you can pretty much say that he slipped in unaware because he wasn't a name that was out there that most people thought would even happen. And so President Obama becomes president in 2008, and all of a sudden, we as Black America thinks that there's going to be a major change and a shifting in our society. And sure enough, he serves 4 years and he gets reelected in 2012 and serves another 4 years. And 8 years later, here we are. Not that President Obama wasn't a good man, a smart man, but he began to get things implemented that sometimes goes against the grain, meaning what I'm talking about is the grain of God. When you start implementing things that just don't line up with the will of God. And so a lot of things didn't take place when you really think about him being our first black president, that he would get laws in place and the playing field would be made equal for black people, because this was something, again, we never thought would ever happen in our lifetime. And so here we are in 2020, and we're under President Donald A. Trump, a man who shows no type of remorse for anything. And it's almost as a man that has no accountability for the office. And so now you look at the judicial system with how black men are being again treated when it comes to sentencings and going to prison. And we just still can't fathom and understand why the injustice of what's taking place in society when it comes to black on black crime, and also white on black crime and police brutality and things of those natures that are taking place foolishly and ignorantly and continue to happen in our society. And so we continue to get frustrated as black people, a black culture, and we want change. We begin to have marches and visuals of people we lose, and none of these things seem to change the heart of white America for some odd reason that we can't see these things happening the same way. When I read how a black man dies, and you read as a white person how a black man dies, and we interpret those things so differently. Why? Why is that? And we cry and we plead to God about change and why these things are not taking place in our society. And so you go back to the days of Emmett Tillman, and oh man, how long ago that was, and what our ancestors had to go through and where we are today. It's almost like going to prison today. And I'm not, as I stated before, I'm not one that agrees with criminal activity, and I don't pat people on the back for going to jail. No, that's hardly what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is the injustice of how we're treated and how it's served once we're put in those situations. And you only know you just don't know how many people are going to prison for crimes that they really didn't commit. You know, you look at this latest one with the young man out of Georgia, Aubrey, how the killers are basically saying that it was warranted. What they killed him for, he basically had it coming. And so there's so many times where these things take place, and they're always justified, and we can't, as black people, we can't understand why is these things being justified and why is it being accepted as being justified. And so I'm going to always take a stand that sometimes is not comfortable for many, to protect maybe what you may have in society because you think it was given to you by somebody. No, I've earned what I have, and I paved my way, my wife and I, for the things that we have, and protect that. So I'm not afraid to stand for what is right and what is just. But I am concerned about still the future of Black America, because our ancestors fought too hard for us to be where we are today. Dr. King and his followers fought so hard for us to be able to stand and do some of the things that we're able to do today. And then I look at our celebrities, black celebrities, and professional black athletes, and the type of money that they're able to earn because of their talent and their skills. But you look at all over America today. This might be as equal as we all are today, because there's no universities in this country open right now. There's no high school, middle school, grade school, daycares, as such that are learning mechanisms. None of these places are open right now. Churches are not allowed to be open unless you are one of those states that have recently opened up. And so I just want to know, are we really starting to think about the state of our world that we live in, and what opportunities and chances will our children and grandchildren have as we continue to move forward through this pandemic? I'm concerned. I'm concerned because I don't know who's trusting and who's believing that God is God and above him there is no other. I'm concerned whether or not we're looking at this thing every day to know if we're not in this alone. We have a leader in the United States that's going totally against the grain, and I know that the Bible says that he'll take the foolish things of this world to confine the wise, and I really believe that I'm wise enough to know that President Trump is not moving in the Spirit of God. I'm pretty wise enough to know that. And so, leaning on my spirit, man, I'm trusting that we as black men, especially, again, will begin to take our lives a little more serious when it comes to getting ourselves caught up in situations where we have to now fight for our lives, to not spend the rest of our lives in prison. There's too many times and too many situations and occasions that we're not thinking about our children and grandchildren and how they're going to have to fend for themselves because we're taking ourselves out of the way. And I plead to you, young black men that will listen to this viewing, and prayerfully that you would subscribe to it, because I'm pleading to you to say enough is enough. you're already going to be stereotyped for ever being in prison. And so coming home from prison and you have to seek employment and you don't get employment, you know what you do when you don't get employment. You're going back to the same thing that got you there in the first place. So I plead to you to say that there's people out there that's working against you. And so you got to do better. You got to find a way to do things differently and challenge yourself to a higher height and a deeper depth. And ask God to enlarge your territory, to increase your vision that you might be able to sustain being an entrepreneur. If you don't want to work for someone, then find a way to work for yourself. That's what me and my son talk about a lot. He said, Dad, I want to work for myself. I want to be my own boss. And so he found a way to get started. And I challenge you to find a way to get started. And instead of continuously giving yourself over to the man in blue for the wrong reasons, and then expecting someone to stand up for you and fight for you when you have put yourself in a situation to be locked up. Things are not going to change unless we begin to make the right choices. And those right choices are, everything is not going to come to you in a day. But you're going to have to give yourself to prayer and supplication, trying to ask God to give you a direction that sometimes is not going to come overnight, but it's going to come through blood, sweat, and tears, and you really working. We're not going to get rich 9-to-5 jobs, but we can make a way to sustain life and sustain ourselves and our families and grow our children in the right direction. We can all do that if we take the opportunity to do that. But again, we need everybody fighting and pulling on the same rope, trying to go in the same direction. We as black people need to stop hating on one another and start trusting one another. Start being honest with one another. We're so quick to trust somebody outside of our own race and won't trust one another. So we get ourselves caught up into a situation, then we need legal counsel, and you end up with a public defender. You know where that's going. And so if your family is able to secure you an outside attorney, you got to pray that they don't sell you away for the few dollars that you give them. It's so many things. It's so many things. I know people that want to do better, but they fall to addiction, and addiction sometimes leads to other things. But there's a war going on out here, and the war starts within us. And so it's up to us to wake up and fight that enemy that's in us and yield to the Spirit of God that wants us to change and become a better man, to give a better focus to be in this world. Because, see, purpose is only found in the mind and in the heart of the one who made us. And that's God. He's our first and only manufacturer. And so that's where we have to get back to. We have to get back to the roots of how we were raised and how we understood that we have to call on the Savior. I know some good brothers out there that are in the game, and it's time to come out of that, because it leads to nothing but corruption and being uneasy with everyday living, because who wants to walk out of their door every day and have to watch their back? No, you don't want to live a life like that. So soon and very soon, we're going to get ourselves in a place where we're going to work together and not against one another. So stay tuned for the next viewing, which will be soon, and you won't want to miss it. Again, I ask that you subscribe to Project Change. My name is Scott Lewis. God bless. Talk to you soon.